Amen. If you can just stand with me. How many know it's good to be in the house of the Lord? It is obviously Christmas morning, and it falls on a Sunday, which I think is a tremendous blessing. And the fact that you would take the time, knowing all of the gift giving and things that you have to go to, that you would come to church on Sunday morning. I often over the years, because this only happens every 7 years, a cycle here, sometimes we have had Christmas service on a Monday. Talk about having a struggle on that one. On a Wednesday if it falls, so then, we have Christmas. Our Christmas service would be the Sunday before. And then I also heard some churches struggle with doing service on Christmas morning because it fell on Sunday. I thought, that's Super Bowl. I mean, today's Super Bowl Sunday. I mean, you couldn't have fell any better. How could that be an inconvenience, amen? Hey, Christmas fell on a Sunday. Let's not have church. Oh my God. So I would say to you, turn to somebody and say, Merry Christmas. And then you can be seated. We committed that service this morning would be an hour. So if you'll just bear with me, I'm going on 35 years of ministry, which means that I've officiated probably 33 Christmas services. And it's the same story, it hadn't changed. And so just like some of the classics that you watch every year on TV, we're looking at a classic. As we look at Christmas, we're looking back over 2,000 years. So we're celebrating the birth of Christ. That birth of Christ happened BC, roughly 05. So here we are in 2022, looking back over 2,000 years at that event. That event was predicated by individuals who for 3,000 to 5,000 years before that had been waiting for the birth of Messiah. So we have the benefit of looking back, viewing it as a historical event. Other individuals looked at a future event, waiting for the birth of Christ. The Bible can be viewed through many different lenses: religious, theological, moral, historical. However, those are all what we would call subplots to the book. A couple other subplots in the book is the fall of man. That's a subplot. The way of salvation, subplot. God's plan for the ages. The restoration of the earth, the second coming of Jesus, subplot. The Bible in its basic foundation is a revelation of God. That's what it is. It's a revelation of God. And in the revelation of God, you'll see the love for man, salvation, restoration, the birth of Christ, the second coming of Jesus. Those are all in a part of you getting a revelation. God giving you a revelation of himself. That revelation of God, the Bible, bases its authenticity and authority. Please listen to this, very, very important. If you got anything on this Christmas morning service, the Bible rests its authority and authenticity. Let me just talk about authority documents for 1 second. You talk about the Constitution and the various arguments over the Constitution. Constitution is a legal document. Its authority rests on the nation. The Supreme Court job is to protect. That is the basis of the protection for that, the authority of it. The Bible rests its authority. It's not just a book. It rests on its authority and authenticity. How do you know? I've heard this for years. How do you know the Bible's true? Maybe it's just another story. Maybe it's just a version of a Charles Dickens story. Maybe the Bible is just another religious book written. Fine, you can have that view this morning. It's just another book, dime a dozen. Millions of books written. Go to Barnes & Noble, go online. Millions of books written over the last 5,000 years. The Bible is just another book. Well, what is the basis of the authority of those books? The authenticity of those books. You good? The Bible rests those and bases that on one thing: prophecy. It doesn't rest on miracles. The Bible's authenticity doesn't rest on the parting of the Red Sea. It doesn't rest on demons being delivered. No. Those things have happened. The Bible rests its authority. If it's the revelation of God and God knows all things, God says, I will flex my muscles so that you know that I wrote this book and I inspired this book for the ages. I will rest it on prophecy. That's pretty powerful. Prophecy. Prophecy in its basic definition is the foretelling of the future. The foretelling of the future. In some cultures, it's called fortune telling. And individuals look to fortune telling, this variation of prophecy or variation of that, they look at it as telling the future. When it comes to prophecy, the distance between the events determines the greatness of the source. The distance of the events determines the greatness of the source. Prophecy is not extra biblical. Prophecy is the book. Prophecy is not given as a part of the faith for the believer. Prophecy is a foundation of faith for the believer. In the Hebrew language, many words are used, translated from the root word for prophecy, which is vision, revelation, and prophecy. The Torah views prophecy as a privilege. Say that one time. It's a privilege. Here's what God said. He said to Israel, I want to make you a privileged nation. So I'll tell you things that happen before they happen. You still good? In Isaiah chapter 46, verse 10, it says, declaring the end from the beginning, my ancient times, the things which are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all that I pleasure. I want to take a second and just kind of hone in on this for a second. In Amos 3:5, it says, surely the Lord will do nothing, but he revealeth his secrets unto his prophets, the servants. Fulfill prophecy. Prophecies divide themselves, and I'll be fast on this. I have to be. I only have a few minutes left. 4 categories prophecies fall into. Past, these are fulfilled prophecies. So the Bible's filled with fulfilled prophecies. Events that were foretold that have already come to pass. Then there's present fulfilling prophecies. This is like the nation of Israel. They're in the process of seeing prophecy untold and unfolded. We might be living in a prophetic unfolding right now in the last generation. There are a lot of scripture verses pointing to the 21st century that me and you live in right now. One world currency, second coming of Jesus, world wars, the apocalypse. Then there's prophecies that are divided into unfulfilled prophecies. And then the last one is back to the future prophecies. These are prophecies that have happened, events that have happened, and within the events, there's future prophecies in them. Jesus uses one of those in Matthew 24, verse 37. As the days of Noah were, so shall the coming of the Son of Man be. He says that event foretold a future event. All prophecies have to have 5 requirements. They must have been made known prior to the fulfillment. So you can't show up on Monday and say, I knew the Giants were going to lose. Now, you had probably a better than 50-50 chance on that one. I'm just saying. So you can't be prophetic on Monday over an event that happened on Sunday. That's not prophetic. That's pathetic. Right? Fair enough? Now, you can use, because a lot of people do this. Jesus mentioned this too. He said to the Pharisees at that time, you look at the signs of the skies, and you've become weather-wise. You could predict tomorrow's weather based on how the moon looks and the sun sets. He goes, when it comes to the Son of Man, you can't look at those type of signs. You can't be weather-wise. Some of us, we can look at a team and predict the skill level of one team and the skill level of a boxer against another and make a prediction based on what we see, what we can comprehend, and what we can view. That's not prophecy. That's an educated guess. Is your Christianity based on an educated guess? I think Jesus died at the cross. I think Jesus is the way to heaven. Sure hope he is. It's good fire insurance. Is your best guess church attendance? Still good? So genuine prophecy has to have 5 requirements. 1, it must have been made known prior to its fulfillment. Number 2, it has to be beyond all human foresight. I mean, you can't use any weather-wise. You can't use an assessment of skills that you have to predict what's going to happen. You can't kind of look and say, well, they kind of just got married. I'm kind of predicting she's going to get pregnant. Duh. I mean, at some point, that's probably going to happen. Fair enough? Number 3, it must contain details. Details. It must contain, number 4, sufficient time between the publication and the fulfillment. We have seen the failure of the 21st century prophecies or prophets who tried to predict what political winds are going to come. The Lord spoke to me, and so is going to win the election. And then they didn't win. So they go back, regather themselves, and say, I was a little off. What's going to happen is going to be a gap in between these things, and this is going to happen. Here's what I say. You're not a prophet. That's what that summed up as. We don't need another podcast. Fair enough? Number 5, must have evidential fulfillment. Everyone good? So let me just clear the slate now. Here we go. The law of compounding probabilities. I'm going to close with this. The law of compounding probabilities when it comes. We are here for Christmas service in the birth of Christ. We're looking back 2,000 years. Many of us are going to focus on the inn, no room in the inn, the gifts that came from the Magi, the wise men, the star in the sky, the birth of Christ, all of these different things. But let's look at it from its prophetic probabilities under the law of compounding probabilities when it comes to prophecy. So the law of compounding probabilities when it comes to prophecy. If I were to predict an earthquake in New York next year, the chance would be 1 in 2 that it would happen. That's the law of compounding probabilities. I don't know who's playing today in football, but I could just randomly and blindly pick a group of teams. Just point me to a board. I could almost take a dart, throw it at a board, and I would have a 1 in 2 chance to predict who's going to win. Add 1 more detail, and it becomes 1 in 12. You got that? 1 more detail, just 1 more detail. Not just who's going to win, but 1 more detail about who's going to win, 1 in 12. Add another detail. This is the second detail. So we went from one just choosing who's going to win, 1 in 2, 50-50 shot. 1 more detail, 1 in 12. Add 1 more detail, and that's 2 details. Now, so let me just add now 1 more detail. The month that is going to have earthquake in New York, I give you the month. Well, that's 1 in 12 because there's 12 months. Add 1 more. The day, 1 in 4,380. I'm narrowing the probability of that being able to happen. the Bible gives just in the area of the birth of Jesus, just the birth of Jesus, because that's the only one I want to focus on today. You've come to church for a Sunday service on Christmas to look back 2,000 years about a child swaddling in whatever swaddle clothes in a manger. That event's been attacked by all sorts of fairy tales added to the storyline, to the gift giving, to the guy that comes down the chimney every single year, really fat, and gives presents and all of these different things. Let me just give you some compounding probability. There's 25 prophecies surrounding the birth of Jesus. Radical ones, too. I mean, we're not talking we're talking insane predictions like he's going to be born of a virgin. Talk about taking the top off of that one. If you just got that one right, that'd be pretty awesome, right? Because that's not predicting a team. That's not taking, because if two teams show up to play, one's a winner, one's a loser. Let's take all of the women ever born for 4,000 years. How many of them ever gave birth being a virgin? None. So God says, here's how I'm going to have this birth come to pass. I'm going to have her come through a woman who's never had any relations. Still good? Now, those prophecies weren't given all at once. They were given over 3,000 years. They were given by various authors. So now we're in Christ. So I just want to give you the landscape here. So prior to Jesus, in the Old Testament books and prophets that were written 3,000 years before Jesus is going to be born on Christmas morning, what we now say is Christmas morning. He's not born on Christmas. Duh. So let's just deal with the birth of Jesus. And God is going to take various backgrounds. He's going to use prophets. And he's going to speak through them. And those prophets are going to have all sorts of education. Some are going to be farmers that were called, like Amos, to be a prophet. Some are going to be priests like Isaiah. And Isaiah's going to prophesy about the coming Messiah. So God's going to say, I'm going to sprinkle this event over 3,000 years. And I'm going to rest my authority so that you don't miss my son. I don't want you to miss Jesus. So I'm going to take at least 25 prophecies over 3,000 years by various authors, and I'm going to tell you where he's born. I'm going to tell you who's going to visit him. I'm going to tell you the birth circumstances over his life. I'm going to tell you that kids are going to be killed by Herod. I'm going to tell you all sorts of things so that you're not going to be stuck on stupid in the 21st century as you look back, so you can't miss my son Jesus. Let me give you some law of compounding probabilities. Again, 1 and 2 to predict a simple thing, like an earthquake in New York. Add one more detail, 1 and 12. Add another detail to that, it's 1 in 4,000. 20 details, specific details. Remember the distance, the stronger the prophecy rests on the distance between the event. Picture this. For 20 predictions, the law of probabilities is 1 in 33,554,432. The first coming of Jesus, let's take the birth, 25 in the birth of Jesus, 109 in the first coming of Jesus. 109. 109 specific prophecies about Jesus in the first coming. That is 1 in a billion billions that event would take place. There's only 109 prophecies about the first coming, and people missed him. 109, I mean down to the details, from the betrayal to the amount of money that Judas gets. Judas, didn't you read the book? From the 30 pieces of silver, even what the money was used for was pre-predicted. The town in which Jesus was born in, the crucifixion, the betrayal. So there's 109 prophecies dealing with the first coming, which is the strength of my faith. There's over 180 verses to the second coming, and I don't want to miss him in the second coming when he already came in the first coming. Is this making sense to you? The law of compounding probability. So if the Lord is strengthening and flexing his authority in the birth of Jesus, can I just say to you, shouldn't we consider things like eternity? And where you'll spend eternity? Because some of us, we're still living by luck when it comes to the future. I don't know about you, but if somebody in the 21st century gave predictions, we do this just in economics. Some of us, we rest our wealth and our health on the prediction of earthly vessels who are trying to predict the markets of the future, and we will rest our retirement in that when God says, can you please rest your eternity with me? So as we come together and we celebrate Christmas morning service, we look at this and we say, this is amazing because God is resting his authenticity and his authority on telling us these things before they happen. And here I am now living in the 21st century, and I have full confidence that if I die today, I'll be with the Lord. 100%, 1,000,000% confidence. In fact, my confidence in God is so strong that I want to live for him. No. I want to live for him. Not just on a Christmas service. I actually want to live for him. I think it would be good and wise for me to integrate him into my everyday life, considering he knows the future and I don't. Does that make sense? So a God that can give details of things that have happened 3,000 years before they've happened also gave details of what's going to happen in the second coming. That's why I don't worry about what happens on MSN and CNN and Fox News and the political arena. I get disappointed. I get, you know what I'm saying? We play our role and our part in making sure that we can shape the future of the culture. But at the end of the day, the Bible has predicted that things will get worse before Jesus comes home. This is why Jesus turns to the disciples and says, let me give you some prophecy. Before I come home, there'll be struggles in the earth. There'll be wars and rumors of wars. There'll be earthquakes. There'll be famines in the land. Here's what Jesus is saying. For that generation, he's speaking to me and you and saying, based on the plethora of circumstances in our generation, we should be running to the feet of Jesus and making him number one in our life. Do you know why God's number one in my life? Because he knows everything, my past, my present, my future. He is capable of guiding me and directing me. Why would I not put my future in his hands? The law of compounding probabilities is working out. Lord, I got two choices to make in front of me. I got a habit of being a loser. You got a habit of being a winner. Help me choose where I should be a year from now, where I should be 2 years. Help me choose who I should marry. Help me choose who I should have friends with. Is it? Wait. Is it? Lord, guide me. Why? Because you've already flexed your muscle that you know things before they happen. So prayer is privilege to have access to an all-knowing God who can give me counsel and direction on where I should go and what I should do for my future. Does this make sense? So as I look back at the Christmas story, and I look at the birth of Jesus, and I see the consistency, and I see the reinforcement. I mean, the absolute strength of the story of the birth of Christ. Now, Jesus didn't tell us to remember his birth. We do that. He said, remember his death and resurrection, not his birth. Because if all he did was be born, he would not have fulfilled. The birth wasn't the fulfillment of his assignment. It was the beginning of his assignment. It was the portal that got him here. The purpose of Jesus was to go to the cross. And there are over 100 plus prophecies about the cross. Then we got the resurrection. And then we got the second coming of Jesus. I know you're tied in the hustle and bustle of life, but I'm here to be for you, not a Hallmark preacher that just focuses on a little card that is given. Here's your card for today, the little manger with Jesus in it. But to challenge you that it is your best position to let Jesus be the Lord of your life. You don't need to go see a gypsy tarot card reader. You don't need it. If you want to know your future, you only have to look to Jesus. And he can drip the seeds in you for your future. When everything is, for me, it becomes important to have certain markers in my year to remind me and to challenge me that I don't get so tied up in the affairs of this life that I forget where God's to be positioned in my life. That's just a healthy thing to do. It is healthy for me and you to have moments where we say, God, this is the pole position that you should be in my life. This Christmas morning, I would say to you that Jesus came to provide a way of salvation. If there was another way, we would have had it. And the way of salvation is that which constitutes a life of conversion. God's not looking to come in your life to be a party pooper. I was witnessing to one guy one time. He's like, I still want to have fun. Yeah, okay. As if somehow God coming into our lives is to wreck fun in our lives. Like God doesn't know how to have fun. God has fun. He created man. He's a funny guy. You know what I'm saying? He's a funny God. Have you ever looked in the mirror? He laughs. I would say to you, and I challenge you out of love and concern, find out where God is in the scope of your everyday life. Where is he? Is he a book on the shelf? Is he a Hallmark card at Christmas that gets put away? Is he cookies and milk? Is he a rare steak for that moment of importance in your life? Is he a glass of champagne that you only have once in a while at certain occasions that you want him to show up? Hey, Dad, I'm getting married. Sure, we'd like a preacher to pray over our marriage. Oh, okay. Is that glass of champagne supposed to stop the marriage from failing? Oh, we had a baby. We want to make sure that we dedicate the baby. Are you dedicated? Are you dedicated? Or is that just a glass of champagne? Christmas. Kind of got to go to church on Christmas, glass of champagne. Dust off that Bible on the shelf. I think we need it this week. You get sick. Oh, my God. Call the elders. We got to pray over you. I get a message. We got to go see so-and-so in the hospital. I'm like, who's so-and-so? Yeah, they used to serve God for years, and then they stopped serving God. And now they're sick, and they need God. Glass champagne. Get the bottle. Let's go. Is it? I'm just simply saying, if those prophecies predicted that, then with full assurance, there's an eternal hell, there's an eternal heaven, there's a plan of salvation, there's a second coming of Jesus, and that should have some value of some place to put in your life. I don't know where you have to do that. I know where I place them for value. I know where I place him, and I have to keep checking that I make sure that he's at a place of value. I need God to be I don't need him to be the backseat driver. No. Oh my God, Jesus, take the wheel. I would just challenge you this Christmas morning that God would like to take the position in your life of Lord and King. Can you give Jesus a round of applause today? For those of you that regularly attend, stand with me this morning.